I don't want to scare you, but I just felt a raindrop.
Oh, all right.
But it was one.
All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Ever wonder if there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe? Well, I have. I've been wondering since I was a kid. My name is Reuben Langdon, and on March 29th, 2007, in the middle of the day, I saw a number of strange objects in the sky. Coincidentally, I was working on the film Avatar at the time, playing an alien. And ever since then, I've been on a quest to find out if aliens really do exist, and if so, are they here with us? If beings of higher intelligence are here, what is their purpose? Why don't they make themselves more known? Why the secrecy? I've asked these questions to many experts, yet each seems to have a different theory. So I thought to myself, why not ask the aliens directly? So that's what I set out to do. Well, sort of.
Micheila Sheldan, you're intuitive channeler.
Yes.
Maybe you could describe your list of credits and abilities.
Oh boy, credits and abilities. Yeah, intuitive channel describes it. You know, there's so many words and terms out there.
Light worker.
I think so, most definitely. I mean, I know that my soul was prepared to do this work, and I came into this life, I've been told, to have messages sent through me as a channel, and those messages come as a variety of different, ways and forms. And yes, I am a trance channel. I'm a conscious channel. I'm an unconscious channel. I can be a medium at times.
Can you explain the differences between trance channel and conscious channel?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of what I do is trance channeling. So my consciousness is, of course, always working because the information is flowing through your soul and coming through your consciousness. But I'm really out of the picture. So when I say trance channeling, I go into a trance state.
Okay.
And I slip completely out of my body. And the way I describe it to people is my left side has always been the receiving, the right side is the giving. I feel that entity or that presence of that being come in on the left, and I feel myself slip out the right. And that being or that higher consciousness is using my voice, my hands, my eyes sometimes, and concepts that are available to me to get this message out into the world. I don't typically remember much of what is said during those sessions.
Is that the primary difference between conscious channeling and trance channeling? Okay.
And I can consciously channel as well. And when I started doing this, I did a little bit of both, but mostly I was a conscious channel, which is kind of interesting because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I could, yes. Well, I went through a spiritual awakening. It was a really, crummy time in my life, as most of us awake to our spiritual gifts during those times. I started to meditate regularly. I was not a meditator, knew nothing about Eastern philosophy. It synchronistically came into my awareness, and I started to meditate very regularly. So when this was going on, I started to notice some really interesting things, that during my meditations I would hear things.
Okay.
So I would hear voices, names.
How long into your meditations did it start until you started getting these voices, these messages?
I fell into it really fast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I fell into meditation very deeply, very quickly. I started hearing things right away, but I didn't realize I was channeling. I just really thought that my mind was making things up.
Would that technically be considered channeling then, if you're hearing the voices and having those conversations, or is that more, how does that work?
Yeah, it was a whole process, and I think a lot of people go through this. I used to call myself clairaudient.
Okay,
so
right.
I would
Yes,
hear, and then I would say, or I would hear and I would write.
So like, not necessarily automatic writing, but you would...
No, I would. I kept a journal.
Okay.
This time in my life, there were so many crazy things going on that I had a journal by my side
Right.
all the time. When I would meditate,
Right.
when I was sleeping, and I would write everything down.
Okay.
So when I would come out of my meditation, I would write things down that I would hear. But as I meditated more, and as I went deeper into trance, at first I was only getting a couple words or a sentence, and then I was getting 2, and then I was getting 4. And then I was coming through from my meditations, and I couldn't remember because I was getting so much information and I was going so deep into trance.
Right.
I couldn't write it down.
Okay.
But I started to voice record myself
Right.
around that time, which was really fascinating, because then I was convinced it wasn't me.
Okay.
It wasn't my brain.
Right.
But the original question you asked was about conscious channeling. And
Yeah.
something that I noticed around that time when I was meditating is when I was walking about my day between meditations, I was having two-way conversations with people, or I was hearing things. And especially when I would have conversations with other people, just casual stuff, I would hear things during those conversations that I thought they said to me, but they really didn't. So I would get home, let's say I was having a very casual conversation with you,
Right.
About, I don't know, your golf game.
Right.
I would get home and I would think, boy, they said something really personal to me.
Oh.
But I wasn't sure if you said it out loud or if I just got it in my head.
Right.
So that's kind of the conscious
Right.
side,
Okay.
where you're picking things up when
Right.
you were,
But then
conscious.
have you since been able to be more aware and say, okay, that person did say this, or this is something I'm picking up on? Or does that still
Absolutely.
get fuzzy and sometimes?
No, it's
Okay.
very clear.
So now, yeah.
It's very clear, and I'll tell you why, because I really tuned into the extrasensory and how it feels. And I often tell people this too. I can ask a question very consciously, and I can tell if my mind answered the question or if it came from somebody else, because
okay.
I can feel it
Right.
in my body.
Okay.
There's an unmistakable vibration that comes with the connection to these beings. And it's very high, blissful, right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is because you do channel many beings,
Yes.
or many entities, beings, collectives, all of it. And yeah, I was going to ask, how do you differentiate? Is it a feeling? Is it a voice? Or how does that work?
Yeah, oh boy. I mean, it's been such a process. It's changed so much. I always get a name.
Okay.
So I always know who's here because I ask. And I was very adamant early on that I wanted to know. But early on, I worked a lot more with archangels, ascended masters, and I could feel the way they showed up in my body. I could feel their facial features come in.
Oh, wow. They have faces.
Yeah, well, I could, Mary Magdalene, I
Okay.
feel the softness of her presence. I almost bow my head. I feel the long hair. Metatron,
Right.
Very hard angles, very serious guy. He's straight and to the point, but I feel that seriousness about him. And to the point where when I was channeling these beings so much, I would know who was coming before they got here because I could feel in my body the shifts and changes. Archangel Michael has that halo you see around the head in many pictures.
Right.
I feel that light come in around the head, and I think, oh, here comes, Michael. A lot of people would tell me that I would take on the characteristics in my eyes and in my face of many
Wow.
of these beings. I don't think that happens much anymore.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why, except that I channel differently now than I did back then.
Okay.
You know,
How long is back then?
well, all of this started for me really strongly back in 2010,
Okay.
and where I had a lot of just synchronistic things that happened, and I was really actively engaging in bringing these energies in. So I've been channeling actively since 2010, although, of course, you know, looking back now, I know I was channeling longer than that, and even as a child.
I see. Would you mind going into the spiritual awakening aspect, or what?
Oh, yeah, not at all.
If it's okay to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I was struggling with chronic pain.
Okay.
And I have an abnormality in my hip joint. It's on the left side. You know, it's supposed to be nice and straight, and
Right.
mine is kind of curvy on
Oh,
X-ray, and
yeah.
so it doesn't work as
Right.
well as what it should. Now, I didn't know this at the time. I just knew that I had this pain in my hip, and
Right.
so over the course of many years, I was, you know, on this Western medicine hamster wheel, right, going to all these doctors and prescriptions, and
Right.
not getting any better. As a matter of fact, I was getting worse. And the pain had gone into my leg. I had a lot of numbness in my leg. I had pain in my back. And I started to notice during this time that the pain would really increase with stress, you know, changes in my life. And I had a really major one around that time. My family made a move from one side of town to another.
Okay.
And it wasn't a really big deal. Just to back up, stay-at-home mom, mainstream mom. I have a degree in marketing and PR, was very successful at that for a long period of time. Decided to stay home with my 2 kids, and loved it. I was in the volunteer world. I ran the PTA, you know, the Girl Scout troops,
Right.
all that stuff.
Stepford wives.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And really happy doing that. Had a ton of friends. I was very important in the community. And ended up in a neighborhood where I couldn't make any of that work to save my life. I couldn't make a friend to save my life. I tried to make that old life fit in this new house and found myself very alone. So I was 40 years old. I was in chronic pain. I'm stressed out. I'm on a variety of medications. You know, I'm taking anti-inflammatories. I'm taking pain meds. I'm on antidepressants. I'm washing it down with alcohol, you know, 5 o'clock every night. And I had to take a pretty hard look at myself in the mirror, you know, and I knew something needed to change. Well, such a divine plan. You know, I look back at it now, and I mean, I was literally picked up and put in this house to heal and really come into these gifts, because that's exactly what happened. Very synchronistically enough, I was exposed to Eastern philosophy in this home. And
how was you exposed? Because not everybody gets exposed. Like, how were you exposed?
Right. Well, I ended up being referred to a trainer, a physical trainer, who had a specialty in corrective exercise.
Oh, okay. For your back issues.
Yes. So I started seeing him, and this guy was all about, you know, Eastern philosophy. And here I was. I had done some Google searches at the same time. I was doing all kinds of different things. I was looking at, you know, what can I do to control this pain? Is it in my mind? Is it in my head? You know, and I had been looking online at people who are meditating to get rid of their pain or disconnect from the pain. So then I'm referred to this guy, and he refers me to the Law of Attraction books and all this stuff. So he kind of opened my mind. I think not only did he open my mind, he was somebody who mirrored that, you know, where I was kind of looking at it on my own, and I didn't have anyone else in my world that was kind of confirming that to me, that was a good way to go.
Right.
So I started going down that path, and that's where I brought the meditation in. And when I say I brought it in, I was really rigid. I would meditate morning, afternoon, and evening.
Wow. Well, you must have noticed a difference pretty early on in the pain factors and stuff in order to commit to doing it so much.
I saw a huge difference.
Okay.
I would go into states of bliss. I would go into just heightened states of bliss in my meditations. So I knew something really good was happening.
Right.
But, you know, my physical body was not responding right away. As a matter of fact, I had started having my nerves ablated to relieve the pain. So I was having my nerves severed every 6 months. I stopped driving because I was afraid to drive because I had such numbness in my legs.
Yeah.
what really ended up happening, well, it all culminated in one event. So I say 2010, it was actually Christmas 2010. And I
Okay.
told this story to, I tell it to all my live audiences.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's a great story. But I was having Christmas here at my house and having the whole family over, planning a meal.
Right.
And I had bought a tenderloin to cook. I don't eat meat anymore, but at the time, that's what I did. And there was a special recipe that I made with this meal, and I did it every year. And so I woke up that morning ready to prepare this meal, excited, happy. Went to the pantry and realized I had forgotten to buy 3 very key ingredients for this meal. Okay, there was a red wine, a spice, and a beef stock.
Was it already Christmas morning?
It was Christmas morning,
Oh, okay.
Christmas Day. So
All right.
there's no stores open, right?
Yeah.
And I got out a stool and I was pushing things aside thinking, I can mock this thing up, right? There's got to be something.
Right.
There's nothing. So I was so stressed with all these people coming.
Yeah.
I called the local gas station, knowing they'd have some grocery items on their shelf.
Right.
Nothing. So I knew that my stress level at that time would increase my pain.
Right.
So I thought I just need to spend some time in meditation.
Okay.
So I went to my bedroom and closed the door. I went into a very deep meditation that day. And I had heard voices in my head before, but this was a quite different experience. I heard a male voice, very loud, as if in the room with me. And all I heard was 3 words, and those words were, I am Jacob. And it shook me, it was so loud. It shook me out
So
of
like
the...
in stereo, wasn't it?
Right, yeah, it was just a very loud voice. But I wasn't afraid.
Okay.
I just felt this peace come over me, this blissful feeling of love. And I tried to communicate back, but I didn't get any answer. And I thought, wow, that was really cool. I don't know what that was, but this is ridiculous. I can salt and pepper this thing. It's Christmas morning.
Right.
So I went back out and went to the pantry and opened up the door.
Right.
And there on the shelf, right at eye level, in a straight row, were the 3 ingredients that I needed for the tenderloin.
Wow.
So I was just overjoyed. I just remember it being a very beautiful day. I was excited. I was happy. I thought, wow, I manifested something into my physical world.
Yeah.
Or this Jacob really
Right.
helped me out here.
You got the ingredients.
Didn't say a darn word to anybody, made this meal.
Yeah.
And had just a great day.
Awesome.
So after that, I kind of put that out of my mind for a while because I
okay.
didn't really I wasn't ready to really accept that happened to me.
Okay.
I kind of thought, wow, I really missed that stuff on the shelf that morning. I must have been pretty stressed out, right in front of my eyes,
Okay, you started kind of talking yourself out of the miracle that it probably was.
Which I think a lot of us do,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I really did. It took me a good year to even tell that story to anybody. I kind of kept it to myself. But what it did do was it piqued my curiosity.
Okay.
So
It happened once, it can happen again.
Yes.
Right.
And so I really wanted to understand, what was it that I was accessing? Who was this Jacob? And really just went on this journey to figure it out. And what I found out was Jacob was a special guide for me. It's like a gatekeeper. A lot of people call them gatekeepers. He was really there to help transition me into this role as a channel.
How did you go about finding this stuff out?
I channeled him.
Okay.
I connected with him, and during this first year, I really spent a lot of time in meditation, receiving information from him and talking to him.
Okay.
And what he told me was that we had a past life together, a past life connection. So he was a young boy in a past life, and he was lost. And I took him in, and I fed him, I clothed him, I cared for him. So he comes back in this life indebted to me in this way to help me facilitate and remember this connection that I have.
Is he still incarnated on this planet somewhere, or how does that? Or is he ascended?
No, he has ascended.
Okay.
Yes, and he is no longer really in the picture for me. I was
Okay.
kind of surprised one day. I thought he'd always be there.
Right.
But one day he stepped in. It was actually not too long ago. It was about a year ago, I guess. He stepped in and said that his work with me was done, and he was really here for this transition that I was making.
Okay.
But back to the story, what really happened that was incredible and beautiful was I completely healed myself through this connection.
Over this year period?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think by the time it was all said and done, it took me a couple of years.
Okay.
And it wasn't just, one thing or another, but And I guess even at the time, I didn't realize I could ask my guides how to heal.
Right.
I didn't realize I could channel information about my own body and what I needed to do. But I just credit being aligned in such a harmonious way with that energy for all of the things that I needed to show up in my world. And I look back on that time in my life, how beautifully that path.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. No, no, no. I saw big raindrops.
Oh.
No!
Yeah, we're gonna have to go in. It's coming
shoot.
quick. Ah. All right,
Okay,
we're back.
we're dry.
We're dry. We escaped the wetness.
Yeah.
So you were telling us about the process. You got the Jacob, the voice came in.
Right.
You were able to save Christmas dinner.
I was.
And then you were on this journey for a year or a couple of years to use this information to heal yourself.
Yeah,
How did that go?
and so what I was explaining was I didn't really realize at the time that I could channel in guides and get information about my physical body and where I needed to go and what I needed to do. And sometimes I don't think that's really what it's all about. What happened was so beautiful because I was completely aligned with Source in such a way that all of the things I needed fell right into my lap. And when I look back on that time in my life, I'm really just amazed at the path that fell before me. You know, I started off with this this therapist, and the next thing, you know, he referred me to somebody else who sent me to a book, who sent me to someone else, and I ended up in a nutritionist's office who just happened to be taking the last person for free when I couldn't pay for it. You know, all of these things, and I'm 100% pain-free today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I got off all my medications, completely changed my lifestyle, and had guidance on how to do that in every area. I mean, I completely changed my diet. I started to exercise differently, live differently. Obviously, I was connecting, in a different way.
Now, during this process, was there ever any resistance for the information, for listening, or was it exciting? Was each step fun and exciting, leading you to the next excitement?
It was fun and exciting as long as I did it in my closet and nobody else knew about it. Because I wasn't really ready to talk about this experience to anyone.
Okay. Not that other people, was it just your personal fear of judgment, or
Oh, yeah.
or had you talked to somebody and then it ended up backfiring? What?
This was a big leap for me.
Okay.
You know, here I was in this mainstream world, right? Living in this, PTA world. And so I wasn't exactly living in an environment where I wanted to come out and talk about the fact that I was channeling, spirit guides. I wouldn't say it ever backfired on me.
Okay.
It was all about my process. I had to go through this whole integration period of just releasing the fear and becoming who I was and delving deep into my soul and understanding, this is what I'm meant to do in this life. But it took me a while to get there. I have a very skeptical mind. So I questioned a lot.
For the skeptics out there, by the way, we people in this reality are the most skeptical about it.
Exactly.
Because me too. And everybody I talk to,
Right.
they're very skeptical about everything. It seems like we're the worst, the most skeptical, and then, but then we end up having things happen to us to make us,
Right.
I guess believe or buy the situations, the ideas and the belief systems that we're taking on.
And what happened was I ended up being led to my tribe. As a part of that that path, I ended up attracting a whole new group of people that I call my family, that were ones I was comfortable sharing this with. And when I started sharing my recordings and things, they were like, you have to put this out there. And I went, ooh, no. no. It's not what I wanted to do at all.
About time period, what year was this when you started connecting with the tribe? So
2012, I think towards the end of 2012. And I work with an organization, Flower of Life Center here. Ethan Fox runs it. And I happened he's a brilliant energy healer. I happened into one of his energy healings. and just Google search was looking for something in my area, spiritually based, and just stepped into this new world where I finally had people around me. You know, I didn't grow up with anyone. I was raised Catholic Italian, strict Catholic Italian family. You know, nobody in my family or my immediate friend, you know, peer group talked about this stuff or even did it, you know. So when I stepped into that, I kind of felt like I had some more support around me. You know, I could be myself. But yeah, it wasn't, you know, I many times looked up, you know, why me?
Right.
You know, why me? And I was told very early on that I was meant to be a channel. I was told my body was prepared for this. I was told I was, you know, meant to channel in front of audiences, and I was very resistant. Very resistant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, resistant to the audience and to the open world, but
Not
you had already
resistant
been
to the
doing
messages.
The
Yeah.
messages you'd already been. It's already been happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. I'm the opposite. I'm like, I want to channel. I want to get this information.
You know,
How do
it's
I do
funny.
this?
Everybody says that. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I want to, you know, I want to do this.
I want to get the
Yeah.
downloads.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like to listen to my material.
Oh, okay.
I liked to channel,
Right.
but I wouldn't often listen to my recordings. And I, you know, again, around that time, I told you I found my tribe, and they're like, you have to listen to your stuff.
Yeah.
You have to listen to it. And when I started to really listen, because I went through this weird period where I just wouldn't listen, but I just was so blown away. And again, that was such confirmation for me that it wasn't me.
Right.
You know, this wasn't me. And I knew I had to put, you know, who am I not? You know, like, who am I to? You know, that was my journey from who am I to do this? Who am I not to put this out into the world?
Yeah.
You know, was where I ended up.
Very good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you adopted your own teachings or the teachings from the channels, or?
You know, I am a self-taught channel. I just fumbled into this along the way. I did, you know, once I discovered I was channeling, then I tried to take some classes in it and tried to read some books on it. But what I found was I was already kind of doing it my way. So not that I didn't get some valuable information along the way, I definitely did. And one of the things, I did take a class here locally in channeling. And what was funny was I just used to channel whatever came. So whoever stepped in and talked to me was who I talked to, or, you know, the messages I gave. And in this class, the one thing that I learned was that I could channel almost any consciousness. You know, it wasn't just about having to wait for whoever came. You know, we would come into class each day and she would say, you know, we're going to channel Native Americans today. And I would look at the instructor and say, I don't do that. So I do.
Yeah.
Well, sure enough. You know, I would feel the facial hair coming in, the long, you know, the feathers, and here I would be channeling, you know, a Native American. So my mind was opened by a lot of those experiences to my own capabilities and how I could, you know, work with this gift.
And now do you, when you do private sessions or group public appearances, you know, I've seen videos where you tend to have a kind of a set group of people that you work through. Are you that open that you channel the neighbor's cat, or you know, how does that work?
I have channeled the neighbor's cat. Actually, no, I have channeled the neighbor's dog. Yeah, I do. I can access those energies.
Okay. What's a typical? If I were, you know, give you a call and schedule an appointment for a private session, how does it typically go?
My channeling has changed so much. I used to, and I still do this, I would work with your guides, teachers, masters. I would just keep myself open to whoever came in for you. Now, I have to say, though, I have started to work with some very specific groups and collectives. And I notice now, maybe within the last year, there's a consistent, you know, collective that comes in as well. So I get a lot of energies. It's a very interesting session because I get past souls sometimes. I work with archangels that come in for people a lot.
Parents and that kind of thing? Or brothers? And
Yeah.
Okay.
I get past lives too. So souls that step in that we're connected to in past, present, future, you know.
You ever get the same soul talking to the person, like their past lives? Like, for example, my past life version of me coming through and talking to myself. That would be interesting.
I have had the higher self step in.
Okay. Oh, that person's higher self.
Yes.
So that's essentially them talking to themselves.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, I have had that happen.
Wow. And as an audible, not like I'm getting this information from your higher self, but can you actually channel the higher self?
You can channel the higher self, but what I've been taught is you really need to ask permission to do that. So I don't, go around channeling everyone's higher self to figure out what's big.
I know, but
but in the session,
Yeah.
I wait. I place the highest intention for the best, information and wisdom that you need in the moment. So if your higher self comes in, we use that information, and I'd be channeling that from your higher self.
Wow. Or like you said, the neighbor's dog.
Or the neighbor's dog. Which is a really funny channel, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, that's got to be weird.
It is funny. I've never laughed quite so hard.
Speaking of dogs, and this might be getting off the subject a little bit, but animal consciousness.
Yeah.
I've heard other materials and talks that where we're in third density consciousness, and the animals in nature kingdom are more second density.
I haven't come across that information.
Okay.
I would say it would be a great question to ask the guides when we channel.
Okay.
As far as nature goes, the way nature shows up for me is more, and I don't know about the density, but it's more like a fifth dimensional energy connected to the fairy realm. That's what as a matter of fact, I had a really beautiful channel the other day for a client who has this strong connection to the fairy realm. And it was really all about connecting nature through that fifth dimensional energy. So, but good question to ask the guides.
And this may be a question for them later as well, but the fifth dimension for you, what does that mean to you?
So what I understand based on the channeling that I've done is that we are moving towards a fifth dimensional consciousness here on the planet, although it'll be quite a while until we're able to really hold that dimension here as a consciousness. Okay. We would be connected more as a one. So what I'm understanding is the heart chakra is very involved, and that's how we connect together. And even you and I sitting here right now, our heart chakras are opening to each other, and we're connecting in this. My guides use the word encapsulate a lot. We encapsulate each other in energy or aura. And when that happens, we are always neutralizing the energy. So, we're bringing each other either, into a higher space, which is usually the case, or, we can go the opposite way as well. In the fifth dimension, we are connecting more through that heart chakra. So some of the things that come in are all of the changes we want to see, because when we are creating through that energy for our highest good, we will start to be able to bring in and hold these free energy technologies. We become self-healers because we can hold that dimensional reality, which is, connection to source through the one consciousness. A lot of changes in institutions, the way we teach.
So we'll still have physical bodies.
I believe that we still will have physical bodies.
Right. Okay.
And I did, so I work a lot with the Lemurian ninth dimensional consciousness.
Okay.
They call themselves the Lemurian Ascension Collective, ninth dimension. And I channeled a class with them. It was a 10-week class. And they talked a lot about preparing for fifth dimensional energies, and that was the basis for the class. So they talk about how we have these energy bodies that as physical beings we associate very separately. And they are the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, and the physical bodies. We see them all, we recognize or associate with them as being very separate.
One more time, emotional, spiritual,
physical, and mental.
And mental, okay.
And in the fifth dimension, when we hold that dimensional reality here, we're beginning to recognize or merge those bodies together as one. So they become cohesive. They become one and working together. And a lot of the practices and the tools and the information they give in this class is how to help you integrate those bodies as one.
I see.
And so that they're all working in concert.
And essentially, once those are all working in concert, does that mean we're at fifth dimensional consciousness?
I believe there's a couple of parts of that equation, because I feel as if as individual souls, we need to do the work, right? So we need to integrate all of that ourselves with these different, the emotional, physical, spiritual, mental body. But we also need to do a lot of clearing in terms of being able to connect, like we talked about, through the heart chakra from, the highest place of love frequency, right? Because that's what fifth dimension is all about. It's peace, love, sovereignty, freedom, and all of those things. we manifest through one consciousness. They talk a lot about manifestation too, and how that changes in the fifth dimension, because we come into a better awareness about how we manifest as a one. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we have to go through this singular version of that first. Like we talk about the microcosm or the macrocosm.
Right.
And I feel like, energetically, that's where we are as a consciousness. Mm-hmm. We're working on that level, and then we're going to catapult it into this, one-dimensional, or is it five-dimensional, fifth-dimensional, right? One consciousness.
One consciousness, yeah. So essentially, we'll all be telepathic in the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have that kind of, and that through your different channels and information, have you come across the difference between telepathic and open-heartedness? Is it the one and the same? Is one more mental, I'm assuming?
Again, they always go back to connection and alignment with source. Mm-hmm. And I think that heart chakra is the key to holding that connection. So when we hold that connection, we become telepathic, and we're accessing energies outside of what the confines of this, 3 to 4th dimensional reality, wherever you want to say you are, is holding us.
Right. What are the three things that one can do to help in this ascension process?
Okay, well, work on yourself is the biggest thing I get, because we talked about the microcosm or the macrocosm. So as singular beings or singular souls, we're going through right now in our physical worlds what the planet is going to be going through next, I believe. So I'm pay really close attention to the things that are coming up in your physical world that are mirrors to your multidimensional self. Meaning these can be relationships, issues with your path or your mission, where you thought you were headed one direction and all of a sudden you hit that roadblock. And I hear it all over, light workers are really struggling right now with a lot of different things going on in their life, where they might have had the finances coming in, the finances went away, where they might have had the relationship got rocky, or there's, something going on there that needs to be cleared, family issues, physical body issues. All of these things are coming up in order for us to heal them right now, because it helps us to purge that karma, right? That lower dense weight, and we have to bring the higher frequency to all of those things first. And then once we do that, we become lighter. We step in and accept these energies in a bigger way, and then we're able to, move into this fifth dimensional consciousness easier.
Well, I mean, I know myself and people around me, everybody's dealing with stuff. I guess we're always dealing with stuff, but it does always, I guess, the more recent stuff is more in the memory. So you're like, man, I can't believe all this stuff that's happening,
it's
and
hard
changes
not to
and
stay physical.
Everything else. So
yeah, well, another thing they always say is there's been a really big emphasis on the emotional body, because we manifest through the emotional body, is what I've been told. And I know there's a lot of different camps on this, and people think, well, our thoughts create our reality. But our thoughts, what the guides have been saying, actually create the emotion. And the emotion that we carry in the emotional body creates the frequency by which we manifest. So now here we are as souls in a fourth dimensional space that have pulled all this junk up, right? We raised our frequency, and now we have all this junk we have to clear. And we tend to get really emotional about it. We put the mental body to it. We try to figure it out. Like, why did this happen? How do I clear it? We get all tied up inside resistant, and then our emotional body holds this lower frequency, which is actually blocking us from the very stuff, that we need to move forward and to accept, to get into that fifth dimensional space.
And emotional body holding this frequency, can you define that a little bit for those? I get it, but just for those watching, what does that mean?
That is how we hold energy. So if we have, if we're getting really stressed out, and there's something in our physical reality that's come up to heal, and let's say that's a relationship, because that's a big one right now.
Sure.
We hold a lot of guilt, stress, anger, fear around holding on to the three-dimensional aspects of those things.
Those are the frequencies, basically.
Those are the frequencies that we hold. And another thing I've been told about relationships is a lot of the reason they're coming up as a focal point right now is because relationships were very third-dimensional. And a lot of people started these relationships in a very third-dimensional consciousness. And we can't take those types of relationships into the fifth dimension.
describe third dimensional relationships? Just like the old paradigm of, or the old kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it stigmatism or kind of the
programming, right?
Yeah,
we're programmed that by a certain age we get married.
Boy meets girl,
right?
Get married, have kids, do this thing. Girl, guy cheats on girl.
Right. We go through all
controlling issues. All the stuff that's the standard operating manual of relationships.
Right.
That's what you're talking
Patterns
about.
that we are repeating that are programmed that, we're very third dimensional in nature. So that's the kind of stuff that's coming up across the board that we need to pay attention to. And, people are getting all wrapped up inside going, well, do I have to, divorce this person, leave this person? The guys are saying, of course not. Maybe in some situations, it was time to recognize that you had to let go of that energy because it's not serving you anymore.
Right.
But you're called to bring a higher frequency to it. You're called to bring that fifth dimensional, frequency of love to the situation in your physical reality and heal it from that standpoint. That's how we really step into this, I think. It's kind of challenging us, right? It's bringing all that stuff up for us to take this new frequency that we hold and apply it in our daily lives.
Right. So not going to the fallback of victimization or blaming or you did this to me, but instead working through those emotions, those lower, we label them negative emotions. Right. And then finding kind of an alternative solution. Right. And working things out. And
the key is, I think, that those negative emotions and, those embody a frequency are separate, right? They keep us separate. Yeah. So those are the emotions we have to pay attention to because where we're headed, we can't really be separate anymore. Right. And there's this whole aspect of our reality where we have placed this protection around us. Mm-hmm. We're always on the defensive. Somebody's going to hurt us. Somebody did us wrong. Right. It's really breaking down that wall because we can't carry that wall with us into the fifth dimension.
Yeah, it seems any of those lower frequencies that we were just talking about seem to be creating separation in some form or fashion. Right. I have, so I do this panel for at anime conventions, and I did it last year, and I'm doing kind of an updated version this year. And the one thing that I've noticed and that I tell everybody, whatever action you're taking, whatever emotion that you're feeling, doesn't create separation. And that's, and that's kind of a good rule of thumb. Right. If somebody's saying something and you listen to it and if, before you act on it or do something, does that saying or does that action, is it going to create separation? If it is, whoa, maybe that's not the best course of action to take in whatever situation you're doing. So it sounds like that's very much along the same lines.
And the other thing too, we're talking about being separate. A lot of light workers who've been in this movement, for a long time and are doing healing work and that sort of thing are seeing their paths and their missions kind of, things are crumbling and not going as planned. And another message about that has been how it's a turning point, right? We're going from that singular focus where you might have been a healer, maybe you did Reiki or, cranial sacral therapy and you were a one-on-one type of a healer. We're moving into a more collective-based type of service. So everything's kind of, shifting and changing to equate to that one consciousness. Right. So it can be mirrored in all aspects of your life.
Yeah. The bad guy is no longer the bad guy. Yeah. That's what I've noticed is, those people over there and, the Middle East, those people, they're bad people. Well, no, the government and they're bad people. So we can't have that sort of bad, good outlook anymore because we're all here, right? We're all part of this one collective human experience, even though they may be on the other side of the planet.
Well, and when you think about the frequency or the energy behind that type of thinking, what I've gotten a lot of is you're actually expanding that consciousness. So take war as an example. Right. War in itself is a consciousness, and it's a consciousness of lower vibrations. So if you're saying those people over there and you're angry about that, even if, they say that people are really well-intentioned, they want to send food and provisions and all this stuff, right? But it comes from this lower frequency, this place of feeling, guilt
Still
or shame,
above somebody else too.
Yeah, and so you have to really pay attention to how you are using your energy in those situations. Are you expanding that consciousness, or are you really, separating yourself from it and going a new direction?
Well, it's also something that I've woken up to of recent too, is the advocacy world. So I used to be kind of big, and I know you were as well. We talked last night that I put on this event called the Citizen Hearing, which was an advocacy type event, pushing the government to force them to make disclosure. And it's like just the words, force and push, and it's like, well, actually, you look at those words and the energy behind those actions, and you're only fueling what, for example, March Against Monsanto. So I did that. I did a couple of years ago, I think 2 years in a row. And then I'm realizing, and I read somewhere or I heard somewhere, that all these activists would call up Mother Teresa and say, hey, can you come and march with us and be part of our group? And she's like, not until you have a peace rally. I'm not going to go and march with you guys, because I'm only going to march for peace, not fight, because that's literally the same energy that's used to, that those guys are using, and you're just feeding. You're feeding the war with that same intention, that same energy.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I went to my first March Against Monsanto rally a couple years ago downtown Detroit, and was really excited to get there. And then I got there and I actually didn't march. I let them go down the street because I felt like it was such an angry vibration that I couldn't participate in it. So
waving signs and people are honking horns, and you're like, well, wake up to the fact there's GMOs in our food and it's gonna kill you. You're gonna die. And like that action,
like a little fear in the energy body. Yeah, I agree. But this is something I think it's part of the process, because this is another message that I've gotten, which is kind of unusual, and I never thought about it this way, but it makes sense. We are purging a lot of karma, and we're going through this turbulent time in order to make some change. And a lot of people haven't awakened yet. There are varying levels of consciousness. And, think about when you awoken to somebody saying, how mad were you, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe something going on.
I was the conspiracy nut. Because I was posting all about, the GMOs and they're taking us and, putting things in our bodies and chemtrails and all of this stuff that, very angry. 9/11, destroying the towers, killing, and now is forcing it all on everybody else, trying to wake everybody up.
I get it. One day I was trying to explain to the mailman what chemtrail, he used to come to my door. I was like, "Did you see that up there?" He's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah, I do that too. I used to do that.
Right.
Like, okay.
I know, you get past it. But what I've been told is that the next 2 years are going to be pretty rough. We're going through a major transition here, and there's a lot going on the planet that's going to have to fail. But we have to also consider that a lot of human beings are beginning to awaken, and they're holding a higher frequency. So what's the first phase of that?
First
is
phase
anger.
Is the
that anger has
I call it the conspiracy theory phase.
Like
everything is a conspiracy theory. Not that it's not.
Right.
But just you get very passionate and upset about it.
You want everybody to know. It comes from a really good place.
Yes.
It's just It's just But see, as this anger is released, it's an energy, right? Like attracts like. So we have to understand that the more people that are awakening during this coming, year to 2 year period, we're going to see some more bad stuff in the world because it's got a mirror. But that's the clearing we're going through. So they actually say it's a good sign. Right? I mean, when you see people, it's not that we need to participate in it, but at least we know, we're clearing some of that energy and that karma.
Yeah, and going back, some of the quotes, I forget the exact quotes, but Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and even Albert Einstein, the famous quote is, you cannot solve a problem or an issue with the same consciousness that was used to create it. So that quote and Martin Luther King said basically the same thing. All the time. You can't go to war and create disharmony and think that we're going to get through this with the rights issues and blacks' rights and same with Gandhi with same thing. You can't win by stooping to their level, so to say. There's no way. And then logically, it took me a while to process that, but logically, you can't. When you look at war and you're going to fight war, the only thing that can overcome it is acceptance and forgiveness and love and not engaging in that energy.
My guides even take that a step further. They say if we want to heal wars on the planet, we need to heal the wars within our own lives. So the war with the neighbor, the war with the family member, the person you haven't spoken to for 2 years, you have to heal all that stuff because, again, it's showing up in our physical world as a part of where we're headed.
Right.
So...
yeah, it's powerful stuff. So, but it's kind of cool. I like that analogy to look at kind of our own personal journeys, and then see that maybe that's probably the next couple of years the humanity's just going to go through the conspiracy phase. I call it the conspiracy phase.
Right.
And then moving on after that, like now life is great, and sure I still have stuff I'm dealing with, but my outlook, and it sounds like yours as well, is on unfortunate events and things. They don't linger very long. They're processed very quickly, and then you're off to the next exciting synchronicity. Yeah. Because then once you stay, I notice at that we'll call it higher vibration, or I would just say less destructive choices in life. Right. Then the synchronicities start coming in that are amazing, and it happens so quickly. Yeah, it's happening so much faster too, and it's like so in your face, but I love it. Yeah, so amazing. That's what y'all have to look forward to is this the synchronicities, and once you get through the conspiracy phase, it's gonna be nice and joyful. You have to be there for a while, but it's like, it's part of the process. Right. Cool. Well, should we take a little break and then get into the channeling a bit? Was there anything else that you wanted to share? No, that sounds good. Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.